We have a jam-packed show for you this time around. We're providing an update on the new signals at the County Line Road Interchange, a sneak preview of 2 large public hearing items at the next City Council meeting, and finally, we'll take you behind the scenes of our recent advocacy trip to Washington, D.C. Buckle up and let's get to it.
This is the Calimesa Insider Podcast, the original Pass Area City podcast, focusing on the ins and outs of your city government at work. And now, here's the host of Calimesa Insider, City Manager Will Kolbow.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the podcast, and we've got a lot of things to get to today. But before we do that, I just wanted to say, just real quickly, we're in our 52nd episode here now of the podcast, and I just want to say I'm really proud of the work we're doing on the podcast for Calimesa. And this isn't to mean any offense to other city podcasts out there. There's a lot of great content out there. A lot of cities are doing a lot of great things, but I think ours is different. This isn't a PR fluff piece where we make, it look like everything is awesome all the time and that we do nothing but great things. Not saying that we don't do a lot of great things. We absolutely do. But we talk about real issues on this podcast, even the ones that might be considered bad news. We're not afraid to talk about things that aren't going so well and explain exactly why that might be. And I talked about it a little bit on our podcast last week, but really it's about making sure that our residents are informed. And so that's really what it's all about. And I am thankful for the city council for allowing me to be real with you, to allow us to talk about all the topics. Nothing is off limits. And that's what I really like about this. And in some other cities, they may want to do something similar, but maybe their elected officials don't want them to do that. And so here it is different. Our city council has a lot of confidence in me, a lot of confidence in our staff. And, they want to be honest. They want us to be honest with the public, even if it's not always great news. So we've talked about County Line Road and the challenges we've had with that subject. So, we want to be honest with you and have that dialogue and build that trust with our community, because we really do take serving our community seriously. And so we have to take the good with the bad. We're not perfect. We're human beings just like you are. We're normal people. So sometimes things just don't go the way we planned. And it's up to us to explain to you why that is. We always have the best intentions in mind. We always want to execute flawlessly. And we do most of the time knock it out of the park, but there's sometimes that we don't. So it's nice that we don't avoid those hard topics. So I just want to thank you for listening and thank the public for really embracing what we're doing here on the podcast. So I really appreciate it. Before we get to the main topics of conversation, I just wanted to talk about a few things. Our Friday Food Roundup, as we're recording, it starts tonight from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at 1103 Calimesa Boulevard, and it will run every Friday from now until August 29th, alternating between the Calimesa Boulevard location at 1103 Calimesa Boulevard and Summerwind Park. So speaking of Summerwind Park, that means it'll be at Summerwind Park next Friday, July 18th, and Summerwind Park is located at 1000 Engelman Drive right here in Calimesa. And then another event that I want to draw your attention to is the grand opening of our library. It's Saturday, July 19th at 10 a.m. It'll be in the same location as the old library at 974 Calimesa Boulevard. Big thanks to the Riverside County Office of Economic Development for managing the project. And also, I want to send a big thanks out to both our former county supervisor, Jeff Hewitt, also former mayor of Calimesa, for leading the charge to get the project funded, and current county supervisor Ixchel Gutierrez for seeing it through and making sure it got done. So I got to take a look at it this week, and it is amazing. It turned out even better than we expected. It's more than double the size of the old library, but because of how this one is designed and laid out, it actually feels even bigger than that compared to the old library. So if you frequented the old library, you're going to just be absolutely blown away by the space that we have created for our community. So we're really excited to have that thing opened up. So we are hopeful you can join us on the 19th at 10 a.m. to take a look at it yourself. All right, so let's get to the main topic of this conversation. The first thing I want to talk about today is the traffic signals at the County Line Road interchange. And if you've driven through there in the last month or so, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I want to say that, first of all, this is a joint concern for both Calimesa and Yucaipa. Obviously, this is an interchange that we share between our cities, and so we're both concerned about it, and we're trying to make things better there. So the current traffic setup at the interchange is temporary, and it's part of a phased improvement plan. So the project development team doing the construction for this is the builder of the warehouse adjacent to I-10, just north of County Line. Again, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I think it's worth noting that that warehouse is actually located in the city of Yucaipa, but you have to go through Calimesa to get to it. So we've received a number of complaints about the setup there currently, and I've observed it firsthand, and these are very real concerns. The biggest one is turning radii for trucks and really everybody. It's a sharp turn off the coming off the off ramps onto County Line Road, especially left turns are particularly difficult to make. But for trucks, it's almost impossible. The visibility and sight lines due to the barriers, there's some limited sight lines because of that. The K-rails and the water cushions that are there, those yellow water cushions. Traffic congestion and reports of collisions and near misses. We've already had to clean up for several accidents that have taken place there. And signal timing possibly contributing to driver confusion as well. So both cities have raised these issues with both Caltrans and the project development team. And Caltrans has acknowledged the problems, and they've requested design modifications from the project development team. So why does it look like the way it does? Well, the K-rails were required by Caltrans to protect the temporary wooden signal poles. But the current layout was meant to be short-term until the permanent signals were installed. As a matter of fact, I think the design counted on that work basically starting as soon as those signals were activated, which is why they never removed the barriers. But unfortunately, the lead times for signal equipment right now are running over 20 weeks, including 6 months. So what we're doing right now is the developer is working on a revised detour plan to temporarily reroute trucks, and then doing engineering adjustments at the same time to improve truck turning and general safety so that trucks can start using the interchange again. And Caltrans has committed to expediting the reviews of these fixes. Now, if approved, the detour could be implemented within 1 to 2 weeks, but the big unknown is how long that approval might take. So there's stuff that has to go from the developer to Caltrans, and they have to take time to review that. They said they'd expedite that, but in Caltrans speak, we don't really know how long that's going to be. So the cities will continue to coordinate closely with Caltrans and the developer to minimize impacts. So I just want to say we share your frustration. I've made our frustrations clear to Caltrans, so they're very well aware of our concerns on this thing and our desire to have this fixed ASAP. Obviously safety and traffic flow are top priorities for us. So we'll keep you updated on the progress as it's made, and we do appreciate your continued patience on this. So we really want to say, again, we know you're frustrated, and we are actively working on this to remedy the situation. So don't think that we've taken this by the wayside. So coming up at our next city council meeting, we haven't had one in a while. Our next city council meeting is July 21st. So I want to move on to a couple of public hearings that will be taking place. So we're going to spotlight 2 major projects that have received the Planning Commission's recommendations for approval recently, and they're now heading to the July 21st council meeting. So the first one I want to talk about is a major update to the Summerwind Trails projects phase 2 through 5. Now, this is a master plan community. We've talked about this for a long time. Phase 1 was built. It's been built for a couple of years now, consisted of 633 single-family homes. And so the changes that we're making reflect smarter design, or Actually, I should clarify that it's not changes that we're making; it's changes that the developer is requesting and staff is recommending approval of. And so it will reduce infrastructure costs and allow coordination with our infrastructure partners, such as the water district and dry utilities, such as electric and gas, and continue planning for our future residents. So what's changing? So let's take a look at a map. I'm going to put a map up here right now. So what's new? So the developer, Gen SoCal 1, they are proposing several changes. And again, I want to emphasize it's not, when I say major, it's major in the fact that it's taken a long time to get here. But as far as the impacts to the community, there's not going to be much change from what's already approved. So I want to emphasize that. So we want to shift around the residential areas a little bit. The school district, Beaumont Unified School District, which services that area, they wanted to move a school site. So there was a swap of school sites and some houses. Reconfiguring some of the park and open space areas for better access and design. Where the Ucaipa Valley Water District has stated that they no longer need the water reclamation facility. So if you look on the map on the left, there is, on the western side of the project, there is a water reclamation facility, and on the right, you'll see it's missing. So it's no longer needed because YVWD has done upgrades to their existing wastewater treatment plant that can then take on the wastewater that this project is going to produce. There's some minor updates to the trail system and road alignments, especially near Singleton Road. And again, the big thing is we're reconfiguring the phasing boundaries to match utility infrastructure like the sewer lift stations, which will better support the new layout. And it just makes more logical sense. The infrastructure costs are more evenly spread across the different phases 2 through 5. Right now, the way it's laid out is that basically you'd have a situation where you're going to have to build all these utilities out to the west and then kind of build back east. Well, now they're basically shifting that. They're starting in the east, closer to the freeway, and working their way west, and then they can build the infrastructure as they go along. So this means that the project will still bring, very close to what was previously approved, 2,577 single-family homes, 522 attached homes, almost 83 acres of parks, and 13 acres of school sites. So this is more than just moving lines, right? It's about actually delivering the project, delivering housing, parks, and schools in a way that matches how the land is actually going to be developed. It makes grading easier, infrastructure cheaper, and overall planning more efficient and effective. And importantly, again, this does not change the number of homes. It's just about in what sequence they'll be built, not how many. And so I think people see this and they think it's something new, that we're all of a sudden adding all these things that were not contemplated before. No, this has been planned for the last 40 years. So that is not changed from what is on the books today and what has been on the books since we became a city. So I just want to emphasize that. This project was reviewed under the existing environmental impact report for the Summerwind Ranch Pacific Plan, and there was an addendum that was prepared, and it confirmed that no new or more severe impacts will occur. So this keeps the city and the project compliant with state law without having to restart the clock on lengthy environmental reviews. So there is a revision to the development agreement as well. So it calls for the developer to pay a $250,000 payment to extend the amount of time that they have to build the project, plus another $125,000 if the agreement is extended. It will call for the construction of the Roberts Road Bridge, which the previous one did as well, and also supports the Cherry Valley Boulevard Interchange planning phase using developer-paid TUMF credits. So we will get to the planning phase and have construction-ready documents, which is going to be important on a topic I'm going to talk about later. And there's a commitment to build not only a future fire station, which was in the existing development agreement, but also our new fire headquarters, which will be a much larger facility and be able to support our fire department both now and well into the future at build out. And so it also contemplates a little more flexibility about where that site, that headquarters will be located. And because right now it's planned to be in the town center, and we've talked to death about how the town center and the state of it right now is. So rather than trying to wait around and see what happens with that, if we find another alternative location for that fire station, that makes sense operationally, we can do it there instead. And what the agreement also does is it secures long-term certainty and locks in the benefits for both the developer and the city. So one of the things that we've heard about this particular project is there's been some talk in the community about the status of the HOA maintained recreation facility. And I want to emphasize HOA maintained. This is not going to be a city facility, and it's going to be built as part of the future phases of Summerwind. So specifically, it calls the conditions of approval call for it to be built as part of phase 3. Now, again, this is something that has been a part of the proposed development in one shape or form since Summerwind was approved in 2005. The good news is that it will still be included in the development as planned. I think there was concern that the developer was going to eliminate that. They are not. The bad news for our current residents in Summerwind, at least, is that the plan had always contemplated a separate master HOA for phases 2 through 5, separate from phase 1. What that means is that phase 1 is not included in the HOA that maintains the recreation center. So this is not something that is at the discretion of the city. This is between the developer, the HOAs that they're creating, and the city's not really involved. We're only concerned with, we don't want them to push this thing off too far because it's an amenity that is an integral part of the overall specific plan. But as far as who can use it, that's a decision by the builder. And so I want to make it clear, because some people have posted on Facebook to make sure you contact city staff on this. That's not going to get you anywhere. You're talking to the wrong people. You're wasting your time, or you're wasting our time, to be quite honest with you. Those comments should be directed to your HOA board or management company, and it would be incumbent upon them to then work with the master developer to participate in the recreation center. So the phase 1 dues that HOA pays, to my understanding, does not include any money to pay for the construction or maintenance of any type of recreation facility. So obviously, you would have to pay into that. So what that would probably mean is that would probably require a pretty substantial increase in your HOA dues. So again, I just want to be clear that the whole conversation about the recreation facility is not one that should be directed to the city. You're not going to be, there's nothing we can do except tell the developer, hey, we're hearing this. And guess what? They're already aware of it. So have the conversation with your HOA, have the conversation with your neighbors. If you want to get together and increase your dues to participate in it, there may be an opportunity to do so. I can't make any promises, but that would be the way to do it. So bottom line, it's a lot of planning, but it's all ensuring that Summerwind grows in a way that fits us, our city, efficient, smart, and community-oriented. So now let's look at a development that's already approved and entitled. So what is the city council considering now? So we're talking about the QR Bircher Logistics Center, a 2.25 million square foot industrial project on about 115 acres of the Oak Valley Town Center. And we've talked about this project plenty of times on the podcast. The developer is asking for a development agreement, and here's why. Here's what that means. So I want to be clear about something first. This is not a new proposal. The buildings, the site layout, the parking, the wedge parking lot, these were all approved back in 2022. The project back then was thoroughly analyzed with lots of information shared during that public hearing. So if you're interested in seeing the details, you can view all the documents at calimesa.gov/agenda center, then view the year 2022 for City Council and go to the September 6, 2022 agenda packet. When the agenda for the July 21st meeting, by the way, is released, one of the exhibits will also include a direct link to all this information. So you'll be able to see exactly what was presented to the City Council, to the public, before the project was approved. So what we're talking about for this coming council meeting is the legal agreement that locks in the terms of that previously approved development. So if you think about it as a contract that makes everything enforceable, ensures the city gets community benefits in writing. So here are the major points of it. First of all, there's a development agreement fee of $200,000 and more if extensions are requested. So it basically extends the entitlements that are already there by 7 years. And then if there's two-year options. So if they exercise those 2-year options, each one will cost them $100,000. There's also a community benefit contribution of 50 cents per square foot, which will bring in more than $1 million when the buildings are complete. And a contribution to public infrastructure at the Oak Valley Town Center. Of course, pending resolution of that litigation with Everest Reinsurance, the bond company that held the performance bonds for the public improvements at the town center. We're still in the middle of that, and I've talked about that on the podcast as well. But here's the kicker. If any of the tenants are point-of-sale businesses, what that means if they basically generate sales tax in which Calimesa is the point of sale, the developer can receive a partial reimbursement of the sales tax generated. And the reason for that is because it provides an incentive for the developer to attract a sales tax producer. We can't mandate them to do that, but we can financially incentivize them to try to find a user, do a little bit more effort to rent the space to somebody that's going to actually maybe like a fulfillment center, think fulfillment center type of things. Maybe there's other uses too that could generate sales tax, but the sales tax that could be generated year after year would be more beneficial and make the development provide even more revenue to the city so that we can enhance public services. So why does this matter? The agreement provides financial certainty for the city. It ensures we don't just approve large buildings. We also get a financial return for the community. And that's something that wasn't included when this was approved. We got a ladder truck that the developer paid for, and now we're locking in additional benefits only for the granting of time. And so these funds can support roads, parks, even law enforcement, things that will enhance our community. $1.5 million to a city our size, we can do a lot with that. But it also locks invested rights to the developer, which is standard. I mean, it's standard for a large-scale project because they want to make sure they're going to be investing millions of dollars. They want to make sure that the city's not going to change, kind of pull the rug out from under them and change the way they do things. They need that certainty and confidence to invest in our community. So, and quite frankly, a big reason they haven't developed yet is because of the bankruptcy of Oak Valley Development Company, which we've discussed also on the podcast. So the reason that they haven't built their buildings yet is because of that situation. So, they would have built it. This thing would have already been there had that not happened. But yet now we're just saying, hey, there's been some circumstances beyond their control that have caused them to not advance the project as far as they have wanted to. So this provides them more time to do what they had planned to do from the beginning. And the city gets some additional benefits out of it that we otherwise would not have received. So this agreement was reviewed, again, under the existing 2022 CEQA amendment. Again, that was all part of that September 6, 2022 approval. No new environmental impacts because there's no environmental impacts, no changes in traffic, no modifications to previously approved land uses or building size because we're not changing anything. Nothing of the project is changing. The only thing that's changing is the amount of time they had to build it. That's it. It was already analyzed with everything else to be done around it and approved. So again, I think it's important that we understand that with all planning analysis, it was analyzed through the lens of cumulative effects, meaning we don't just look at how things were at the time you approve it. We analyze it knowing the homes that were there and are going to be built, the schools and parks in the area, and all other development that had been approved up to that point, whether they had been built or not. So it considers future development that's already been approved, not just what's there at that moment in time. Okay. So while this may not be a new project, it is a major step in locking in additional benefits, ensuring fair contributions, and giving the city leverage to enforce community obligations. And development agreements, again, this is how we make sure growth works for Calimesa and how we secure benefits while providing assurances to those that will be investing, like I said before, millions of dollars in our community. So both of those items will be on the agenda July 21st. That agenda should be available for public review around July 18th, maybe sooner, but that's usually the goals. We try to get it Thursday before the council meeting. So be on the lookout for that. Actually, that would be July 17th, I guess. So try to be on the lookout for that. Hopefully by the end of the business on July 17th, we'll have that posted, but it will for sure be up there by Friday, July 18th. So the last thing I want to talk about is I want to take you behind the scenes and talk a little bit about a recent advocacy trip that the mayor, our city engineer, and I took to Washington, D.C. And the sole purpose of that trip was to talk about how we fund the the Cherry Valley Boulevard interchange. It is the biggest, it is the top infrastructure priority for our city. And we want to put Calimesa in the best possible position to receive major federal and state funding. And this is one of the ways you have to do that. So, again, we've talked about this project multiple times on the podcast, episodes 11, 32, and indirectly 49. And again, the new interchange would improve safety, emergency response, and traffic flow. And it's a key piece in making both existing and new homes viable on the south side of our community. If we don't get this interchange built, the rest of our transportation and economic development strategy will hit a wall. I mean, it will not allow us to move forward. It is vital. It's already needed. We've heard from you loud and clear. This should already have been done, and we agree. We started this process before a single home was built in Summerwind. Not one home was built. Most of the impacts come from the city of Beaumont. Most of that traffic that's hitting Cherry Valley Boulevard interchange today comes from Beaumont. But yes, our residents are already impacted. But we did start this process well before any house was occupied in Summerwind. So we want to make that clear. So when we were in D.C., we met with officials at the United States Department of Transportation and our congressional representatives. For most of the meetings, we shared a brief history of Calimesa, who we are, where we are, because a lot of people, even Southern California, haven't heard of Calimesa. I had to explain it to my relatives when I first came to work here, where it was. We talked about how our stretch of Interstate 10 is the only section of roadway along I-10 that has not seen any major improvements since it was built in the 1960s. How this lack of investment has stifled our economic development opportunities. We've had a lot of interest in the town center, and part of it has been because there has not been major investments from the federal or state levels in our section of the I-10. And we've talked about how the city has invested locally over the years, including widening of Calimesa Boulevard through downtown and the connection of Singleton Road to Bryant Street. So now we're asking the federal and state and for federal and state investments to complete or to complement the improvements that we have made and to make things better for our residents. We talked about the regional benefits of the Cherry Valley Boulevard interchange. Like I said, a lot of the users of the interchange live in the city of Beaumont. So it doesn't just benefit Calimesa. It benefits Beaumont. It benefits Cherry Valley. And quite frankly, I think it even benefits people as far east as Banning and Cabazon, because if you improve the flow of that interchange causes a bottleneck, which then backs up onto the main line. And if we can improve the traffic on the interchange, it also will have an impact on the main line and reduce congestion on that as well. So our representative in the House, Ken Calvert, has met with us several times previously and is well aware of our infrastructure needs and the importance of the Cherry Valley Boulevard interchange. So in our meeting with him, we focused on obtaining his help in obtaining federal dollars to complete the project. And Representative Calvert is a ranking member of the Appropriations Committee and the chairman of the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, meaning he is one of the most influential members of Congress. He also has a long-standing relationship with the current Secretary of Transportation, a relationship that will be key when final funding decisions are made. So after the meeting, Congressman Calvert's official Instagram feed, where you see the picture that I'm showing here, the caption with that picture was this: I met with Calimesa Mayor Linda Molina earlier today to discuss federal funding for important transportation projects that are necessary to reduce congestion. I look forward to working with Mayor Molina and the city to secure federal funding to provide relief. That made the trip worth it. That is what we were looking for. That is the commitment we were looking for, because that will be a key in getting us across the finish line. So what is out there? What are the different funding opportunities? The big one that we're looking at, and that would probably be the best fit for us for this project, is what's called the infra grant, the Infrastructure for Rebuilding America. It targets freight and highways. Obviously, we are in a goods movement corridor, so it's a perfect fit for this project. And typically, the awards range from $25 to $100 million, right in our range. We're looking for $50 million for this interchange. That is our funding gap. The mega grant is bigger and more complex, probably a little bit big for us. I think the current minimums of that are probably a little bit higher than what we need, or if we try to go for that, we probably would not be a good fit for it, but that doesn't mean they're not going to make changes. Another one is the RAISE grant, and it supports locally driven projects with safety, sustainability, and equity components. Often funds up to $25 million, although the terms sustainability and equity have been a little bit, poo-pooed by the current administration. So, probably that grant program may change. And again, it's only up to $25 million. I said we needed 50, and we'll talk about how that still could help us. There's another program that's called the TIFIA loan program. It offers low-interest financing to help leverage other funds and accelerate construction. So if we have some kind of funding shortfall, let's say we get a grant, we do get a RAISE grant for $25 million, and we're still $25 million short. And let's say we get another $10, $15 million from the state. So now we're about $10 million short, right? If we need that funding to close that gap, that might be an option for us to look at. Wouldn't be ideal, but that's what we would probably look at. Another thing that we've actually already gotten on the interchange, $2 million worth, is community project funding, or what's known as earmarks. And so Ken Calvert has been very successful in that. He's already secured, like I said, $2 million for this particular project. And then there's some state programs as well. The Trade Corridor Enhancement Program, TCEP, it's funded by SB1 and administered by Caltrans. It supports infrastructure projects that improve freight corridors. This is especially relevant because, again, Cherry Valley Boulevard, it helps connect I-10 truck traffic to regional warehouse and logistics hubs, and it also helps, again, like I said before, it helps traffic on the main line. And this could provide tens of millions of dollars in matching funds if we show regional impact and congestion relief, which we can. Beaumont has actually been very successful with this program, receiving funding for both the Potrero Boulevard interchange at 60 and a railroad grade separation at Pennsylvania Avenue. They've between those two projects, they've been awarded over $80 million. The State Transportation Improvement Program, it's smaller in scope, but it can help us. That can be another piece of the puzzle to get us to where we need to be. The ATP, we actually participated in ATP grant, the Active Transportation Program. We have some ATP money was used to get as part of the County Line Road interchange. Another key component is going to be the TUMP program, which I've talked about on the podcast before. We've already identified the interchange as eligible for TUMP dollars, and we'll be working with WRCOG to lock in a regional commitment. And again, this is a development impact fee, so it is actually funded by development. And so a large chunk of what we're going to be using to build this interchange comes from TUMP, which means that developers are paying for it. So I think that's important to note. So again, the total cost of this project is in the $70 to $80 million range. So even with TUMP and development contributions, we still face that $50 million gap. And that's why we're leaving no stone unturned. We're looking at federal grants, state freight programs to build a coalition needed to make this a reality. So we're actively looking at programs. We're actively starting to apply for, make sure we know we're keeping an eye out for those notice of funding opportunities. And while that happens, we're continuing to get the engineering work and planning work done so that we have a complete set of plans. We can show that we're shovel ready and then go out. And once we get that money, boom, we can go right away into our construction phase. So if you support this project, if it's something that you think we need, and I think most of you do, talk to your neighbors, your county supervisor, your state and federal reps. Let them know how much this project matters to you. And we'll continue to let you know how you can help us advocate for this project. And again, we've talked about it before. We talked about it a lot on episode 49. Infrastructure takes time, but advocacy is voice. And that's what we're doing. We're speaking up, we're doing these trips, and that's why we're doing it. So again, one question that we hear, speaking of development, why don't developers just pay for the whole thing? And it's a fair question, but the reality is that they are contributing, number one, up to $20 million, maybe even more, but we can't expect them to pay for the entire $70, $80 million bill. First of all, we can't legally do it. The Mitigation Fee Act, cities can only require developers to pay their fair share of the impacts they create, not more. And when you have a lot of the things that are already built in Beaumont, how do you compel a developer that's already built stuff, right? That's why we are asking our Summerwind developer to pay their fair share, and they have been. But we don't have control over what other cities do, unfortunately. And quite frankly, just to remember, these are private companies. They're not ATMs. If the costs become too high, projects may stall or never happen, which is a big part of why the town center is in bankruptcy right now, or part of it is. One of the owners went into bankruptcy for that exact reason, because costs got too high. And it undermines our housing goals, and it undermines our ability to grow our tax base and spread costs out for providing public services and our long-term growth strategy. Because again, the more you grow, yes, you have to support the new people that are coming in, but you do accomplish some economies of scale and allows you to use your tax dollars more efficiently. So that's why when we do these things, you have to do layered funding. It's a mix of developer contributions, which includes TUMF and other regional programs, state and federal grants. So it's going to be local, regional, state, and federal money. That's all going to go into that. And that's how infrastructure gets built everywhere. It's not just in California, it's everywhere. But speaking of funding, even though we don't have them in Calimesa, another way that things get funded are through tolls. We see the toll lanes. We see the toll roads down in Orange County. And in a future episode, we'll talk about why that's becoming a prevalent method of funding infrastructure across the country. The states that people we hear are fleeing to, that's how they're funding their roads. Texas has lots of toll facilities. Florida has lots of toll facilities. They're not doing anything different than what we're doing here in terms of how they're building their road infrastructure. So I think it's important that we talk about that. Again, even though we don't have them in Calimesa, a lot of you probably use those each and every day. So I think it's important for you to see that. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Our next city council meeting again will be this Monday, July 21st at 6 p.m. at the Norton Young Love Senior Center, where the city council will discuss those two items I discussed earlier, among other things. You can catch it live in person or go on the city YouTube page by going to calimesa.gov/YouTube. And again, if you're viewing this before, if you're watching it hot off the press, I hope to see you tonight at our first Friday Food Roundup. And so again, 1103 Calimesa Boulevard at 5 p.m. And next week, Summerwind Park. It'll be at Summerwind Park also at 5 p.m. And we also hope to see you at the grand opening of the Calimesa Library Saturday, July 19th at 10 a.m. Again, that's located at 974 Calimesa Boulevard. Subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Please follow the show on Instagram and TikTok, both at Calimesa Insider, all one word, where you can find highlights and bonus content. So again, until next time, have a great weekend, stay cool, and I'll talk to you again in 2 weeks. Take care.